Do you love pixel art style games and are after something that is cozy but not a farming simulator? Then Spirittea may be the perfect game for you. Today I'm going to share with you everything you should know before purchasing the game and give you some honest opinions of the gameplay after nearly 15 hours played. For full transparency, I was given a copy of this game, but I was enjoying it so much I did go ahead and purchase a copy on the Switch just to see how it performs. All of the opinions expressed are my own and I've not been given any guidance on what to say. So now that's out of the way, let's get into the tea. So firstly, what is Spirittea? This game has been developed by the solo developer Cheesemaster and published by No More Robots. And at its core, it is a pixel art style simulation management RPG that has definitely been strongly inspired by the Studio Ghibli films and other cozy games such as Stardew Valley. But of course, there is no farming, which makes this perfect if you're wishing to escape the farming grind. It is available on multiple platforms, including the Switch, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and if you're an Xbox player, it is actually available on the gamepass, which is nice. For my time in this game so far, I have mostly played on the PC, however, I have enjoyed some time handheld on the Switch, and in the future, I think that is where I may continue playing. So first off, let's talk about the story. Spirittea does start life like most farming sims, as you play as a writer moving to the country from the city to start a new life and work on your book. After the player provides some basic information such as naming your farm, your name, and you create your character, you board a bus and head on a long journey into the countryside. Once you arrive, you are greeted by a character who gives you an introduction into the town, and there is a whole lot to see. There is a restaurant, karaoke bar, bicycle shop, coffee shop, convenience store, and a whole bunch more. It's not long after your arrival, and you soon discover some unusual happenings occurring around the town. And you discover that spirits are actually responsible for these strange events. With the power of some specialty and the guidance of a floating cat called Wanyan, it is your role to find different ways to appease the local spirits, which can sometimes be a little bit tricky as there are some cryptic clues, so you do need to get your problem-solving hat on. Once you've identified these spirits, they need somewhere to relax, and that is where one of the main story arcs come in, and that is where you learn about running your own bathhouse. You very kindly volunteered to rebuild the dilapidated building and revive it to a bustling bathhouse for the spirits to relax and spend their hard-earned donations from shrines around the world. Not only must you kind of refurbish it, but you must also make sure that the spirits are all happy by servicing their needs. There are a plethora of both supernatural spirits and humans that bulk out the storyline as you get to know their individual quirks and storylines, which is always good to see. But what about the gameplay? There are a few different aspects to the gameplay, the main focus being on the actual day-to-day running of the bathhouse. When you're first introduced to the bathhouse, you are given a very long speech about how it all works. The information is quite well explained, but it is very long and it is a little bit overwhelming, as with the introduction. But there is no way to re-access this information, which can be a little bit of an issue, and I did find this on more than one occasion. Any form of written guide has been replaced with a picture in the bathhouse, which can raise more questions than actually provide help. Most of the running of the bathhouse for me was found through playing the game and just kind of figuring things out. I did even miss the part about cleaning. There were some brushes just leant up against the wall, so I probably should have paid more attention, but we got there in the end. The actual playing and management of the bathhouse is quite fun, and it's definitely not stressful. You can open and close the bathhouse at any time, and the tasks are all quite casual, from stocking the fire with wood from a magical tree to ensuring that the towels are clean. The spirits are all pretty relaxed, so there is little urgency. The only thing you really need to be wary of is sitting spirits together, because some of them will not like one another. I did again have to learn this through trial and error, because although there are some tips, I did find myself confused at times about who should sit where. And the guide, although you learn about the individual spirits, it doesn't tell you what kind of traits they have, which would definitely be needed if you were to do it just based on that and not learning. Overall, this aspect of the game was a lot of fun and it is addictive. I would have appreciated maybe a little bit of a speed up time function at times just to help the customers tick over a bit better, but it wasn't a major issue for me. As you progress in the bathhouse, your spirituality will increase, which in turn allows you to see more spirits around town. These are tracked on a notice board by the shop, and the clues are a little bit cryptic, and as I progressed through the game, I did struggle a little bit to figure out what to do. Much like in the beginning, there is no quest you can easily track to remind you of what point you are at in that particular time, which I did find to be a little bit of an issue, but I did manage to complete the majority of the things I needed to. But the quests themselves, I did find them to be enjoyable, and the dialogue was always fun to read, really well written. Aside from the quests and the bathhouse running, there are also other mini games to enjoy, such as fishing, which I won't lie, it wasn't my favourite. You can also cook Korean barbecue food and enjoy a drinking game at night. There is a whole bunch of other things to explore, which I can't wait to see. There is also cooking in this game, which is pretty simple, and you can use items cooked to increase the spirit's happiness in the bathhouse. I wish it would automatically pull from your inventory though, and when in the bathhouse it does appear that it is lacking its own storage, which I do believe requires a separate upgrade, but at this time I just don't have the funds for it. You are also able to write your own book, which I will be honest, I did keep forgetting to do, which I think is easily done due to the lack of prompts around this activity. But overall, I did feel that the gameplay was very smooth and I did thoroughly enjoy it, and I definitely kept going back for more. Now let's talk about the controls. My preference when gaming on PC is always keyboard and mouse, and I did play this way in the beginning. However, I soon learned that this is not the best way to play the game, and it's definitely not optimized for that. After switching to my controller, it was a lot better, and I did find the different controls a lot easier to maneuver. I found myself using the UIs definitely a little bit better. The controls on the Switch were much like the controller and definitely easier to use than the keyboard and mouse. I am personally a huge fan of pixel art graphic style games, and this game is no different. I really do love the world in this game. It's really beautiful. There are some really lovely designed buildings and different areas to explore. However, when it comes to the character customization, it definitely lacks. There are a few options and the details of the characters are pretty much non-existent, particularly for your player. I appreciate that this is a pixel game, so I'm not expecting the world, but when it compares to other games such as Roots of Pasha, it definitely falls flat. I will say that I did enjoy the character portraits when interacting in the dialogue, and the dancing map was also a fun little addition. As for the music, I definitely feel that this does complement the game well. There are some really lovely tracks that are featured. They definitely were on the mellow side, and sometimes this did make me feel a little bit sleepy, but it fitted well with the whole relaxing vibes. And the music combined with the world sounds were really nice and atmospheric too. I definitely feel like this soundtrack complements the game perfectly. So far, I've kind of mentioned some good and bad things about this game, but I just want to point out the top things that this game does well and some things that it doesn't do so well for me. Firstly, although the introduction was long and one of the first quests is to meet some of the locals, and normally when this is a requirement in the game, you are left struggling to figure out where everyone is, and sometimes it's not the best introduction to a game, but here you have a dog called Jan to help you guide to different characters around, and this definitely made this whole aspect of the game feel a little bit less arduous. And once you've greeted people, their location also appears on the map, which I was very grateful for, and this is something I always download a mod for in Stardew. The dialogue and storylines are well written and they are quite comical at times. Wanyan is a wonderful companion and his sassiness does stand out. There is definitely also a variety of speech as well with the different people in the village, which is something that I did have an issue with in other games such as Fae Farm. But for me, the definitely overall standout thing for this game is just the overall game loop. It's super relaxing, very casual. I can definitely foresee myself picking this game up, spending some time just running the bathhouse for a little while and just being wholly satisfied. Additionally to this, I did enjoy the way that the stamina works in this game, once I figured it out that is, because the bento box definitely wasn't overly clear for me, although I do love the way that it's done. And you are also free to sleep and choose how long you want to sleep for, which is always nice. I love having that freedom. However, I do have a few cons, but I feel like these are definitely things that could be easily rectified. I have seen people say that they have encountered bugs in the game. Thankfully, I have not yet, but if I had, these would definitely feature here. The dev does appear to be pretty on it and is working on a fix for these soon, which I always see as a good sign. Aside from the bugs, one of my main issues arose around inventory. In the beginning, it is very small, probably the smallest inventory I've ever seen in a game, and even after buying the first upgrade, which was pretty expensive, I was still running into problems. There are lots of things to buy from the shop in this game and a few different things to collect around the world, and after spending some serious money in the shop one day, I didn't even realize I had purchased more items than my inventory allowed, and a couple days later, I returned to the shop to find them on the floor. This problem is definitely not helped by the lack of stacking in your inventory. You can have multiple of the same item and they do not stack, so you do find yourself making frequent trips home just to fill up your inventory, and then because of the lack of stacking, you do find yourself having a few different pages, which is a little bit frustrating to say the least. I also did sometimes struggle to see if my character was holding things, which was a bit disappointing, and I also did struggle with when your character was holding something, particularly if it was a food item. I couldn't run. I don't know if there was another button that I was missing, but instead of being able to run while holding like a food item, it kept asking me if I wanted to eat it, which definitely made getting around the map slower when you had a full inventory. I've already touched on this, but the game does need more explanations in areas, and this needs to be done not by means of dialogue with characters, because that can be easily forgotten. I think what it needs is reference points and a quest page with hints and tips that can be referred back to. There is a lot to learn, and this would definitely make it easier. I would also like the notice board to be accessible anywhere in the world, as this gives you more idea of what the spirits are, and these quests can become quite lengthy when you're required to purchase ingredients or recipes that aren't always available at that particular point, so sometimes you do find yourself having to wait days to complete that particular quest. By that point, sometimes you may have forgotten it. I also did expect the bathhouse to make more money than it does. You can be there for a whole day and still not make that much money. There are many different things to buy in this game. There's a bridge to repair to a whole separate areas. There's multiple upgrades for the bathhouse. So I did expect financial progress to be easier than it sometimes feels, which, although this is relaxing, I don't want it to be grindy and dull, so I feel like upping the financial gain would definitely be of benefit to the players. So to conclude, although I don't like tea, which is criminal as a British person, I know, I do like Spirittea. Is it perfect? No. Is there room for improvement? Definitely. But this is a cozy game that brings me joy, and definitely going to be one of my go-to games for when I am wanting some casual gameplay that does not involve watering crops. Are you going to give it a go? Have you already played? Let me know in the comments. But without further ado, have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.